We are 100 days away from hurricane season, and I'm here to break down what we're seeing going into hurricane season exclusively on TBF Cyclone. Happy Saturday, February 22nd, 21st, 2026. So as of today, we are only 100 days away from the start of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. And there has been a little more information, but not much more since I did my first prediction, which was in, I believe that was early December, if you remember that video. So I may have changed my prediction a bit. I don't completely remember what it was. It may have. So I'm predicting 16 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes at this moment. It may have been 9 before, but before that, it may have been 9 before what it is right now. And then tropical storm risk. This is a more official forecast. Released their forecast in mid-December of last year, predicting perfectly average season, 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. NOAA releases their forecast in May. That's pretty much the most official, with the Colorado State University forecast coming in kind of after that as the second most official. Colorado State issues their forecast usually in mid to late April, something like that. The names for this year, we start off with Arthur, Bertha, and Cristobal, and then as we continue down the list, we see some familiar names that we've seen before. Hurricane Hannah from 2020 hit Texas as a Category 1. And then Leah, this is a new storm. It replaced Hurricane Laura from 2020, which hit Louisiana as a Category 4 hurricane with 150 mile-an-hour sustained winds, so almost Category 5 status, a wild storm. And then Ida, just a year later, was either 145 or maybe 150 again. So 2 storms, kind of 2 years after 2 separate years, but similar intensities, both hitting Louisiana. In different spots, Laura was a little bit further to the west, but Ida was like kind of right in New Orleans. Marco, you may recognize this name, you may not, depends on the type of person you are. In 2008, this was a weak tropical storm, about 60 miles an hour. I guess that's a moderate tropical storm, but it was the smallest tropical cyclone anywhere on Earth on record, and it still holds that record to this day. And it does have a bit of history being a storm. It was a hurricane a couple of years ago. I don't remember if it was 2020 or 2014. And then as we continue down the list, Sally from 2020, I believe, did some stuff. I don't completely know whether or not it did. But yeah, 2020 was the most active hurricane season on record, and it was pretty wild. It had 30 named storms. I don't think we're going to see anywhere near that this year. We exhausted this list, and then we went to Greek letters. We don't do Greek letters anymore if this list runs out. Then we have a supplementary list that is A through W again. They skip Q, U, W, X, and Y, X, Y, Z. Q, U, W, X, Y, Z. That's the letters, or not W. Q, U, X, Y, and Z. I think that's it. Yeah. Sorry, I have a bit of a cough. They skip those letters because those names are hard to find, and they're not super common, so if a storm gets retired, it's going to be difficult to find another one. And if enough of them get retired, we're not really going to have a name to replace it. The notes for this season, going into it at this point, there's unusually high uncertainty for even this far out. There is pretty high uncertainty, but this time it's still unusually high. Lately it's been looking like, or until recently, it's been looking like it's kind of been a average season. but then there's been maybe some stuff suggesting a weak to moderate El Nino during peak season. Again, that's August through October, especially middle of September. And in El Nino, it's the phase that happens sometimes every few years. Last year we had a weak La Nina, and I think we still are in La Nina right now. It's weak, but it's for the Atlantic. It means cooler than average water temperatures, but also less wind shear. Usually more storms form during La Nina years because it is less wind shear. And then during El Nino, we've had a few strong ones recently since like 2015. It's warmer waters than average, but it's also more wind shear, which really prevents storms from strengthening too much and even developing. So what we saw in 2023 was a very strong El Nino. Well, we saw 20 storms, which is unusually high. And that's not the only recent El Nino. I believe 2015, I could be wrong, there was another quite strong El Nino that, and there were also a lot of storms that year. So lately we've been seeing very active El Ninos. So that's why I'm not yet predicting a below average forecast. I'm kind of keeping it average, maybe even slightly above average, because we'll see how warm the waters are. And they have consistently been warmer than average over the past few years. So as we get closer to hurricane season, I'm going to be watching any changes that are ongoing. Water temperatures in the Caribbean right now are about 81 degrees. They've kind of stalled out over the past couple of weeks. As we head into March, they should start to warm up. And then I'll watch how quickly they warm up. Waters in the Gulf are still about 75, around that range, and then sometimes into the 60s. But yeah, again, I'll be monitoring any changes as we get closer to hurricane season and keep you updated. Now won't be too early to start preparing, especially for places like Florida, the Carolinas, Gulf Coast, those places that get a lot of hurricanes. Now won't be a terrible time to start preparing. And you really can't prepare too early. Start getting sandbags ready, stuff like that. And yeah, I'll be keeping you updated as we get closer. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching and see ya.